want you to hit me as hard as you can.
Hello, this is Gaius Bowling here with a review of Moonfall, the latest disaster flick effort from Roland Emmerich. It's a movie about the moon falling towards Earth, so that should be pretty fun, right? In the case of this film, not so much. In the movie, the moon is knocked from its orbit by an unknown force and put onto a collision course with Earth. Two astronauts and a conspiracy theorist work together to attempt to avert disaster and discover that the moon is not what it seems. I was watching an interview featuring Halle Berry, who is one of the stars of Moonfall, where she calls the film's director, Roland Emmerich, the master of disaster. Truer words have never been spoken. This is the very man that gave us disaster flick classics like Independence Day, The Day After Tomorrow, and 2012, and he has turned his brand of mass destruction into a bit of an art form. Emmerich usually finds the right balance of dumb fun spectacle and engaging enough characters to guide us through the runtime. Sadly, with Moonfall, yet another world is in danger effects-heavy effort from the director, he has lost his sense of fun. With the exception of some cringe-worthy lines, Moonfall is never fun or funny enough. The film takes its rather absurd premise seriously, and it doubles down on that seriousness with a third-act climax that tries to get too cerebral for its own good. Emmerich used to be so good at blowing things up and making us laugh, but this signals that he could be losing his touch. How does a premise like this not end up being fun? Like the title suggests, the moon does indeed fall towards Earth, but writers Roland Emmerich, Harald Kloser, and Spencer Cohen aren't content with letting that be the hook. I didn't need much of an explanation as to why the moon has been knocked from its orbit, but they go there with ideas about megastructures and a concept that maybe AI had something to do with the very creation of the moon. Once the film's story attempts to get too complicated, it really goes off the rails, and not even scenes of special effects peril can save it from itself. The film starts off in true disaster movie fashion. Astronauts Brian Harper, played by Patrick Wilson, and Jocinda Jo Fowler, played by Halle Berry, are on a routine mission with a rookie astronaut when a mysterious tar-like substance derails their duties and the rookie ends up lost in space. We learn that NASA was quick to cover up what happened and blamed Harper for negligence, rather than letting the world in on what really happened while they were in space. Harper loses his job, his wife, and becomes estranged from his kid. Fast forward 12 years. His kid Sonny, played by Charlie Plummer, is now a teenager who has led a troubled life due to his father's absence, and his wife is now remarried with a man named Tony, played by a surprisingly underused Michael Pena, and has had 2 kids with her new husband. Brian essentially feels worthless until something begins to become clear in space. The moon has been knocked from its orbit and could be colliding with Earth in less than 3 weeks. A conspiracy theorist with astronaut aspirations, K.C. Hausman, played by John Bradley, is the first to realize this, but no one will listen to him. The disaster becomes clear when Jo gets the call from NASA, and now she has to pull Brian back into the game to help her figure out what's going on out there. If you guess that it has something to do with that mysterious tar-like substance from the beginning of the movie, you'd be right. It's interesting that Roland Emmerich just yesterday criticized Marvel, Star Wars, and DC Comics for ruining the industry with their lack of original ideas. Because Moonfall is one big cliche of films that came before it. There's a bit of Independence Day mixed with Armageddon with a dash of The Abyss and some 2012 for good measure. Perhaps since 2 of those films are Emmerich efforts, I can't be mad at him for copying himself, but he forgot to bring the humor with it. The film lacks fun characters, save for John Bradley's likable and endearing K.C. Hausman, and the film is littered with dramatic cliches. Brian Harper's life just screams redemption story, and once we learn that Jo didn't back him up after the events of the mission that opens the film, we know she'll be all in with him now in dramatic fashion. All the film's beats are too familiar, and they lack any excitement to make them interesting. Given the film's reported $140 million budget, it's a shame that Moonfall's effects don't make you really feel the disaster. There are some big effects set pieces, but they all feel neutered. If you've seen one incoming tidal wave, you've seen them all. The climactic third act, which features the astronauts discovering what's really going on with the moon, juxtaposed with the human story here on Earth, never hits its stride because we're not invested in any of the characters. Their peril never feels strong enough to fully care about. I will say that John Bradley comes the closest to tugging at our emotions, but then you remember that Armageddon did this better in 1998. I imagine this was a paycheck job for most of the actors, or maybe they just really wanted to work with Roland Emmerich. Patrick Wilson and Halle Berry are adequate as the leads, but we never really care about their characters. If anything, we simply care because they're Patrick Wilson and Halle Berry, and we've liked them in much better projects in the past before this one. The aforementioned John Bradley is a highlight, but the the rest of the cast just does the bare minimum as special effects act circles around them. I was all for Moonfall because I'm more than willing to take in a dumb disaster movie. The problem ends up being that the film spends too much time trying to explain its ridiculous plot rather than giving us a thrilling experience. Moonfall isn't fun, funny, or exciting, and I was left scratching my head at the fact that a movie about the moon falling to Earth could end up being so utterly generic.
If you're watching this, then you know by now a huge problem is heading our way. An emergency meeting is being called at our usual place immediately. 3 bagels. I've made a shocking discovery. I need you to get me in touch with NASA immediately.
Well, NASA and I aren't really on speaking terms these days.
Well, that'll change. When you tell them that the moon is out of orbit.
There's no need to panic.
I'm not crazy!
Why are they lying about all this?
It's too late to stop.
You knew all this was happening before NASA.
You're the unidentified source?
Oh, yes.
We're dealing with an intelligent entity. We're planning a mission to attack this thing. I'm asking you for your help.
Say yes, Brian.
I need you to be brave.
If the moon really is what you think it is, suit up.
You have got a big gravity wave coming your way. You have to launch now!
Did he say gravity wave?
Trouble on the way.
We're underwater, guys! That's crazy.
I hear hurricanes are blowing.
Whoa, slow down!
What's the plan?
Save the moon, save Earth.
Brian, what are you doing?
It's flying itself!
Wait for it. Let's go, you son of a...
Yes! Hang on! Everybody, hang on!
I'm gonna get you home!
It's on airplane mode.